The blue crystal sun of Targonus Prime cast its eerie glow over the vast shipyard of abandoned vessels. Captain Kellen Voss, the infamous Black Tiger of Space, stood on the bridge of his warship, the Dark Moon, surveying the destruction his crew had wrought on the latest Astra Empire convoy. The raid had been perfect, swift, merciless, and profitable. Yet something felt off. 28 years of piracy had taught Voss to trust his instincts. "Captain, we've secured the cargo holds." First Officer Jack's red blood Corin reported, his scarred face illuminated by the tactical displays. "Weapons cache larger than expected, enough plasma cells to power our shields for months." Voss nodded, his silver-streaked black hair tied back tightly, revealing the neural implant at his temple, a remnant from his days in the Great Inter-Alliance War. "And the prisoners?" "Minimal resistance, mostly technicians and merchants." Jax hesitated. "There's something else. One of the captives claims diplomatic immunity. Says she's Lyra Astreus." Voss turned sharply. "The princess? Bring her to me." When the guards escorted the prisoner onto the bridge, Voss knew immediately she wasn't bluffing. Her posture, the defiant tilt of her chin, the unmistakable royal crest tattooed at her wrist. This was indeed the daughter of his sworn enemy, Emperor Matthias Astreus. "Captain Voss," she said, her voice steady despite the visible bruise on her cheek. "I've heard stories about the Black Tiger since childhood. You're shorter than I imagined." A ripple of tension passed through the bridge crew, but Voss merely smiled. "And you're far from your palace, princess? What brings Astra royalty to the outer systems without a proper escort?" "Diplomatic mission to the mining colonies." Her amber eyes narrowed. "One you've just violently interrupted." Voss circled her slowly. "Diplomatic missions don't usually carry enough weapons to equip a small army." Before she could respond, Talia Wren, the ship's chief engineer, burst onto the bridge, her dark eyes wide with urgency. "Captain, we've intercepted Empire communications. They've put a bounty on the princess's head." "A bounty?" Voss frowned. "Why would they?" "Not for her return," Talia clarified. "For proof of her death. 50 million credits." Silence fell across the bridge. 50 million would set each crew member up for life, far beyond their usual hauls. Jax was the first to recover, a predatory smile spreading across his face. "Well, Captain, shall I prepare the evidence?" The princess didn't flinch, but Voss caught the slight tremor in her hands. Something wasn't right. The Empire always ransomed their own back, especially royalty. Why would they want the princess dead? "No," Voss said finally. "Lock her in the officers' quarters. Post guards." "Captain," Jax protested. 50 million. "I said no." Voss's voice cut like the void of space. "This smells wrong. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we make any decisions." That night, as the dark moon drifted through the purple haze of the Crimson Nebula, Voss sat alone in his quarters, studying the princess's file. Lyra Astreus, 26 standard years, educated in both military strategy and interplanetary politics. Rumored to be her father's successor rather than her older brother. Interesting. His door chime interrupted his thoughts. Talia entered, looking troubled. "The crew's restless. Captain, Jax has been talking. They see the bounty as their ticket out of this life." Voss sighed. "And what do you think, Talia?" She hesitated. "I think there's more to this than we understand. Why would Emperor Astreus want his daughter dead?" "Exactly." Voss stood, pacing the small confines of his quarters. "The Empire's ruthless, but they've always protected their own. Something's changed. Or perhaps," Talia suggested quietly, "the order isn't coming from the Emperor at all." The realization crystallized in Voss's mind. A power play. Voss decided to confront the princess directly. When he entered her quarters, she was standing by the viewport, gazing at the swirling nebula beyond. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said without turning. "The Crimson Nebula, created when your pirates destroyed an Empire science vessel carrying experimental fuel cells. 2,000 civilians died. That was before my time, Voss replied, though the defense sounded hollow even to his ears. Does it matter? One pirate or another, you're all the same. She finally faced him. Are you here to kill me, Captain? Claim your bounty? I'm trying to understand why your own father wants you dead. Something flickered in her eyes. Perhaps I've outlived my usefulness. Or perhaps, Voss countered, someone else is giving the orders while wearing your father's crown. The princess studied him for a long moment. My brother, Darius, has always been ambitious and impatient. A coup? He wouldn't be the first Astraeus to seize power prematurely. She turned back to the viewport. Kill me or don't, Captain. Just know that if you do, you'll be serving the interests of a man who will hunt you down the moment you're no longer useful. Voss left her quarters more troubled than before. If the princess was telling the truth, returning her to the empire meant certain death. Killing her for the bounty would make him a pawn in royal politics. Neither option appealed to him. Over the next days, the tension aboard the Dark Moon grew palpable. The crew had caught wind of the bounty, and many questioned Voss's decision to keep the princess alive. Jax became increasingly vocal in his opposition. The men are wondering if you've gone soft, Jax said during a private meeting in the ship's war room. We've never hesitated to strike at the Empire before. This is different, Voss insisted. We're being manipulated. Since when do we care about Empire politics? Jax slammed his fist on the table. 50 million credits. Kellen, enough for all of us to disappear forever. And then what? Voss challenged. We become the mercenaries who helped an usurper take the throne? You think he'll let us live to enjoy those credits? Their argument was interrupted by an alarm blaring throughout the ship. They rushed to the bridge to find chaos. 3 Imperial destroyers had appeared from hyperspace, weapons hot. How did they find us? Voss demanded, taking command. Talia's fingers flew over the controls. They're jamming our communications and targeting our engines. This isn't a random patrol. They knew exactly where to find us. Voss's gaze fell on the princess, who had been brought to the bridge during the alert. Did you signal them somehow? She looked genuinely surprised. No, this isn't a rescue mission. Captain, look at their formation. They're positioning for an attack run. She was right. The Imperial ships were taking aggressive positions, not the standard retrieval formation used for hostage situations. They're here to eliminate all witnesses, the princess said grimly, including me. Battle stations, Voss ordered. Evasive maneuvers, full power to shields. Prepare to jump to hyperspace the moment we have an opening. The Dark Moon shuddered under the first barrage of Imperial fire. They were outgunned and outmanned. But Voss hadn't survived nearly 3 decades as a space pirate by fighting fair. He ordered the ship into the densest part of the nebula, where sensor interference would give them an advantage. The radiation will damage our systems, Talia warned. Better damaged than destroyed, Voss replied. The battle was brutal and swift. The Dark Moon sustained heavy damage. But Voss's intimate knowledge of the nebula's properties allowed them to disable 1 Imperial ship and escape the others. As they limped away toward a hidden pirate outpost, Voss found himself standing next to the princess in the aftermath. You could have surrendered me, she said quietly. Saved your ship and crew. They weren't interested in prisoners, Voss replied. They fired on their own princess. Tells me everything I need to know about who's giving the orders now. She studied him with new interest. You're not what I expected, Captain Voss. I've been called worse. The Dark Moon made it to Sanctuary, a hollowed-out asteroid that served as a hidden repair dock for various outlaw factions. While Talia oversaw the repairs, Voss decided to take advantage of the outpost's intelligence network to learn more about the situation within the Empire. What he discovered confirmed his suspicions. Emperor Matthias had fallen ill suddenly 3 weeks prior. Though he still lived, Prince Darius had assumed temporary control of the Empire's military forces. His first act had been to recall Princess Lyra from her diplomatic mission, but her ship had, mysteriously, disappeared en route. The official story claimed a pirate attack with no survivors, yet a bounty was quietly circulated for proof of the princess's death. Voss also learned something that made his blood run cold. Vice Admiral Maya Draven had been tasked with hunting down the Dark Moon. Draven, once his commanding officer, now his bitterest enemy, had been pursuing Voss since he deserted the Alliance forces to become a pirate. She knew his tactics better than anyone. When Voss returned to the ship, he found Jax and several crew members in heated argument with the princess in the mess hall. "Your family has executed pirates without trial for generations," Jax was saying. "Why should we protect you now?" "Because the alternative is putting a madman on the throne," the princess replied calmly. "My brother starts wars for profit. He executes dissenters publicly. The outer colonies you claim to champion will suffer most under his rule." "Pretty words from an Astraeus," another crew member spat. "Your family's cruelty is legendary." "I don't deny our history," the princess admitted, "but I've spent years working to change our policies toward the outer systems. Why do you think I was on a diplomatic mission to the mining colonies?" Voss stepped forward. "The princess stays alive. That's final." "She's manipulating you," Jax warned. "She'll say anything to save herself." "Perhaps." Voss met the princess's gaze. "But we're going to give her a chance to prove her claims." Later, alone with Lyra in his quarters, Voss outlined his plan. "There's an Imperial weapons cache on Helion's satellite station, supposedly abandoned after the war, but my sources say it's still operational, running illegal weapons research. If you're truly working to reform the Empire, help us raid it. The evidence we find could expose your brother's operations." "You want me to help pirates attack an Imperial facility?" she asked incredulously. "I want you to help us expose the truth," Voss countered. "If you're the reformer you claim to be, prove it." After a long moment, she nodded. "On one condition, if we find evidence of illegal operations, I take it to the Inter-Alliance Council, not just the pirate networks. This needs to be handled properly." "Agreed." The raid on Helion Station proved more dangerous than anticipated. The abandoned facility was heavily guarded, with experimental defensive systems that nearly destroyed the Dark Moon on approach. Only Lyra's knowledge of Imperial security protocols allowed them to breach the outer defenses. Inside, they discovered the horrifying truth. The station wasn't just developing weapons, it was testing them on political prisoners from the outer colonies, experimental biological agents, neural disruptors, and worse. Evidence logs indicated that Prince Darius had personally authorized the program, circumventing Imperial law and inter-alliance treaties. As they downloaded the evidence, the station's alarms triggered. Imperial forces had arrived, led by none other than Vice Admiral Draven herself. "We need to go, now!" Jack shouted as blaster fire erupted around them. But Lyra had ventured deeper into the facility, determined to free the remaining prisoners. Voss made the split-second decision to go after her while ordering the rest of the team back to the ship. He found her in the detention area, desperately trying to override the cell locks as Imperial troops closed in. "We don't have time," he yelled, pulling her away from the controls. "We can't leave them." Tears streamed down her face as she fought against him. "This is my family's doing. I can't just—" "You can't help them if you're dead," Voss insisted. "We have the evidence. We can come back with proper forces." A blaster bolt sizzled past them, forcing them to take cover. As they exchanged fire with the approaching troops, Voss caught sight of a familiar figure, Maya Draven, her silver uniform gleaming under the emergency lights, her expression cold as space itself. "Kellen Voss," her voice carried across the detention area. "Finally, I find the deserter playing hero." "Maya," Voss called back, "still doing the Empire's dirty work, I see." "I serve justice," she replied. "Something you abandoned when you stole that ship and turned pirate." "Is this justice?" Voss gestured to the cells around them. "Experimenting on civilians? Since when does the Alliance condone torture?" "The Alliance doesn't know everything that happens in the outer systems," Draven admitted. But sometimes, sacrifices are necessary for security. While they exchanged words, Lyra had been working feverishly on a nearby console. Suddenly, the detention area's emergency protocols activated, cell doors sliding open, warning klaxons blaring. "What have you done?" Draven demanded as chaos erupted, prisoners fleeing in all directions. "Creating a diversion," Lyra replied. She grabbed Voss's arm. "I've also initiated a reactor overload sequence. This facility won't exist in 15 minutes. They ran, using the chaos to their advantage, fighting their way back toward the docking bay. But as they neared their escape route, Draven intercepted them, her elite guards blocking the path to the dark moon. "Surrender now," she commanded. "There's nowhere to run." Voss assessed their options rapidly. The reactor countdown meant the station would soon become a fireball. Most of his crew had already retreated to the ship, but Draven's forces blocked their only path forward. "Go," he told Lyra, pressing the data crystal into her hand. "Take the maintenance shaft. I'll hold them off." "That's suicide," she protested. "So is staying together." He gave her a push toward the access panel. "The evidence is what matters. Get it to the council." Before she could argue further, Voss stepped into the open, drawing Draven's attention. "Looking for me, Admiral?" What followed was a firefight that would later become legend in pirate tales. Voss, outnumbered 10-1, used every trick he'd learned in decades of survival. He rigged explosive charges from his belt, created false targets with debris, and utilized the station's failing systems to his advantage. But Draven knew him too well. She anticipated his movements, gradually wearing him down. A blaster bolt caught him in the shoulder, then another grazed his leg. As he took cover behind a fallen support beam, he realized he was running out of both ammunition and time. The station shuddered violently. The reactor meltdown was accelerating. Draven must have realized it too, as she ordered most of her forces to evacuate, but she herself pressed forward, determined to finish Voss personally. "You always were too stubborn to know when you were beaten," she said, advancing on his position. "And you were always too focused on the mission to see the bigger picture," he replied, clutching his wounded shoulder. "The princess cannot be allowed to spread lies about the Empire," Draven stated flatly. "The stability of the entire system depends on a strong central authority." "Even if that authority is corrupt to its core," Voss challenged. "Especially then," Draven replied. "The alternative is chaos, lawlessness, pirates like you running unchecked." Another explosion rocked the station, larger this time. Structural integrity warnings blared through the remaining functional speakers. They had minutes at most. "Time to choose, Maya," said. "Die for the Empire or live to fight as another day." For a moment, indecision flickered across her face. Then her expression hardened. "Some things are worth dying for. Kellen." She raised her weapon for the killing shot, but never fired. A maintenance panel behind her burst open, and Lyra emerged, wielding a heavy pipe that she brought down on Draven's head with surprising force. The Admiral crumpled to the floor. "I thought I told you to run," Voss said weakly. "Pirates don't take orders from the Empire," Lyra replied with a grim smile, helping him to his feet. "And I don't leave allies behind." Together, they staggered toward the dark moon, which Jax had kept docked despite the imminent explosion. They barely made it aboard before the first sections of the station began to disintegrate. As they pulled away, the reactor reached critical mass, consuming Helion Station in a blinding flash that temporarily outshone the nearby star. "I thought you'd leave us," Jax admitted as they escaped the blast radius, the ship's medical droid tending to Voss's wounds. "I considered it," Voss replied honestly. "Seemed like the smart play." "Then why stay?" Voss glanced at Lyra, who was transferring the station's data to a secure terminal. "Let's just say I'm tired of being on the wrong side of history." In the days that followed, as the dark moon hid in an uncharted asteroid field while Voss recovered, the crew's attitude toward Lyra gradually shifted. Her willingness to return for their captain, despite the risk to herself, had earned her a measure of respect even among the most hardened pirates. Talia, in particular, had taken to the princess. The two women often found deep in conversation about engineering principles or political theory. Voss watched these interactions with a mixture of amusement and concern. The princess was still a valuable hostage, or at least she should be. But increasingly, she felt like a crew member. "You should be preparing to present your evidence to the council," Voss told Lyra one evening as they shared a meal in his quarters. "I am," she replied. "But I'm also learning about life outside the palace walls, about how the empire is viewed by those it claims to protect." She studied him thoughtfully. "Why did you become a pirate, Voss? Your service record was exemplary before your desertion." Voss rarely spoke of his past, but something about her direct gaze compelled honesty. The Alliance and the Empire signed their treaty. The war was supposedly over, but nothing changed for the outer colonies. They were still being exploited, still starving under imperial quotas and taxes. He shrugged. Someone had to fight back. "So you became the Black Tiger?" "Started smaller, just disrupting supply lines, redirecting resources to colonies in need. But the Empire's response was extreme. They destroyed entire settlements suspected of harboring pirates." His expression darkened with the memory. "After that, mercy seemed pointless." "Until now," she observed. "Until me." Before he could respond, the ship's alarm activated. Jax's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, to the bridge. Emergency." When they arrived, the tactical display showed 5 Imperial cruisers systematically searching the asteroid field. At their center was the implacable Vice Admiral Draven's flagship. "She survived," Voss muttered. "And she brought reinforcements," Jax added grimly. "We can't outgun them, and in this debris field, our speed advantage is minimal." Voss studied the Imperial search pattern. They were being thorough but hadn't detected the Dark Moon yet, thanks to the ship's advanced stealth systems. But it was only a matter of time. "We need a diversion," he decided. "Something to draw them away while we slip past their perimeter." "The automated mining drones," Talia suggested. "We could reprogram them to emit engine signatures similar to ours, send them in multiple directions." "Do it," Voss ordered. "And prepare for emergency jump the moment we clear the asteroid field." As Talia worked, Lyra approached Voss privately. "There's another option," she said quietly. "Surrender me. You could negotiate safe passage for your crew." Voss shook his head. "Draven doesn't want prisoners. She wants to erase all evidence of what happened at Helion Station, including us." "Then let me take an escape pod with the data." Lyra persisted. "I can make it to the nearest Alliance outpost while you lead them away." "Too risky if they capture you." "It's my risk to take," she interrupted. "My responsibility. This started with my family's crimes." Their debate was cut short as the proximity alert sounded. One of the Imperial ships had changed course, heading directly toward their position. "They found us," Jax reported tensely. "Weapons locking on." "Execute the diversion," Voss commanded. "Full power to engines the moment those drones launch." The plan worked, partially. The mining drones, reprogrammed to mimic the Dark Moon's signature, drew away most of the Imperial fleet. But the Implacable stayed on their tail, Draven evidently suspecting the ruse. What followed was a deadly game of cat and mouse through the asteroid belt. The Dark Moon had the advantage of maneuverability. But the Implacable's superior firepower meant even a glancing hit could be catastrophic. Voss pushed his ship and crew to their limits, executing maneuvers that bordered on suicidal. They almost made it. The edge of the asteroid field was in sight, open space beyond promising the chance to jump to hyperspace. But as they emerged, a second Imperial vessel appeared, cutting off their escape route. Trap! Voss realized too late. Draven had anticipated their strategy. The Dark Moon took heavy fire from both directions, shields failing, engines damaged. They limped back into the relative cover of the asteroid field, but it was clear they couldn't outrun their pursuers much longer. Voss made his decision. Jax, take command, get the ship and crew to Sanctuary. I'm taking the princess in the stealth shuttle. That's not a plan. That's suicide. Jax objected. They want us because of what we know. Voss insisted. If Lyra and I take the data and run interference, you can slip away during the confusion. And then what? Talia demanded. Where will you go? The Alliance Central Station in the Protos system, Lyra said. If we can reach it, I can claim diplomatic protection and present our evidence directly to the Council. No one liked the plan, but no one offered a better alternative. As the crew prepared the stealth shuttle, Jax pulled Voss aside. This isn't like you, he said bluntly. Risking everything for an Imperial princess. It's not about her, Voss replied. It's about exposing the truth. About finally doing something that matters. Jax studied him for a long moment. You've changed, old friend. Maybe I'm just tired of running. Voss clasped his first officer's shoulder. Keep them safe, Jax. If I don't make it back. You will, Jax interrupted. The Black Tiger always lands on his feet. The shuttle separation went smoothly. The Dark Moon creating a diversion with its remaining weapons while Voss and Lyra slipped away in the opposite direction. But their reprieve was short-lived. Draven, perhaps anticipating this move, dispatched fighters to sweep the area. They're too thorough, Voss muttered as they powered down all non-essential systems, drifting between two massive asteroids. They know we're still here somewhere. We need to reach the jump point, Lyra said, studying the navigation display. But they formed a blockade at every possible exit from the field. Voss considered their options. The shuttle was designed for stealth, not combat. They couldn't fight their way through. But perhaps... The mining tunnels, he said suddenly. Some of these asteroids have been hollowed out by the automated mining operations. If we can navigate through one of the larger ones, we might bypass the blockade entirely. Lyra finished, catching on. But those tunnels weren't designed for ships. They'd be incredibly dangerous. More dangerous than waiting here to be found? Voss asked. After identifying a suitable asteroid, a massive irregular rock nearly 20 kilometers across, they cautiously approached its main mining entrance. The shuttle barely fit through the opening, its wings scraping against the jagged edges. Inside, they navigated by the shuttle's short-range sensors and the faint emergency lighting that still functioned in some sections of the mining operation. The tunnels twisted and branched, forming a treacherous labyrinth. More than once, they nearly collided with abandoned mining equipment or support structures. The sensors are picking up a larger cavity ahead, Lyra reported. Looks like a central processing chamber. We can reorient there. But as they emerged into the larger space, the shuttle's external lights revealed they weren't alone. An Imperial scout ship was docked near the opposite tunnel entrance, its crew apparently using the chamber as a temporary base. Before they could retreat, the Imperial ship spotted them. Alarms blared as the scout powered up its weapons. Hold on, Voss shouted, ramming the throttle forward. Instead of retreating, he aimed directly for the Imperial vessel, firing the shuttle's light weapons as they charged. The bold move caught the Imperials by surprise. Their first volley went wide as Voss executed a spinning maneuver that brought the shuttle alongside the larger ship. At point-blank range, he targeted their engine housing, causing a secondary explosion that filled the chamber with debris and smoke. Now we run, he told Lyra, pushing the damaged shuttle into the nearest exit tunnel. Behind them, the disabled Imperial ship managed to get off a distress signal before its systems failed completely. Now the entire Imperial fleet would know their approximate location. The tunnel they'd chosen descended deeper into the asteroid, not toward the surface as they'd hoped. Worse, it narrowed progressively, forcing them to reduce speed to avoid collision. This was a mistake, Voss admitted as they navigated the increasingly tight passage. We need to find another way out. Wait. Lyra pointed to the sensor display. There's a major structural weakness ahead, some kind of natural cavity intersecting with the mining operation. If we could break through, we'd risk collapsing the entire tunnel, Voss warned. We're out of options, she replied. Those Imperial ships will be swarming this asteroid any minute. Voss made the call. Setting the shuttle's remaining weapons to maximum yield, he targeted the weakest point in the tunnel wall and fired. The explosion was more powerful than expected, sending shockwaves through the confined space that tossed the shuttle like a toy. Alarms blared as they lost power temporarily, drifting in darkness. When emergency systems came back online, they found themselves in an enormous natural cavern, crystal formations reflecting their lights in dazzling patterns. A fissure at the far end revealed the stars beyond, their way out. But the structural damage from their explosive entry was spreading. The cavern was becoming unstable, massive crystal formations breaking free and plummeting around them. As Voss navigated through the falling debris, the shuttle took multiple hits, each impact compromising their already damaged hull. "We're losing atmosphere," Lyra reported tensely. "Hull breach in the aft section." "Emergency suits," Voss ordered, already reaching for the compartment where they were stored. "Put it on now." They barely had time to seal their helmets before the shuttle's cabin depressurized completely. With life support failing and controls responding sluggishly, Voss fought to reach the fissure that promised escape. But a final, massive crystal formation crashed directly into their path, forcing him to execute a desperate evasive maneuver that sent the shuttle into an uncontrolled spin. "Brace for impact," he shouted as they hurtled toward the cavern wall. The collision was devastating. The shuttle's forward section crumpled, console panels exploding in showers of sparks. Voss, thrown against his restraints, felt something snap in his chest. Beside him, Lyra hung limply in her harness, a crack visible in her helmet visor. Fighting through the pain, Voss freed himself and checked her condition. She was alive but unconscious, her suit automatically sealing the crack with emergency resin. The shuttle, however, was beyond salvation, its engines destroyed, its hull compromised beyond repair. Through the shattered viewport, Voss could see the phaseur, their exit, tantalizingly close yet impossibly far without a functioning ship, and beyond, the unmistakable silhouettes of Imperial vessels converging on the asteroid. "Come on, princess," he muttered, freeing her from the wreckage. "We're not done yet." Activating his suit's magnetic boots, he half-carried, half-dragged Lyra toward the shuttle's emergency equipment locker. Inside, he found what he was looking for, a pair of emergency thruster packs, designed for short-range extravehicular movement. "Not exactly how I planned to travel to Protos," he told the unconscious princess as he attached one pack to her suit and the other to his own. But beggars can't be choosers. The cavern was now breaking apart in earnest, massive sections of ceiling collapsing as the structural integrity failed completely. Using the thruster pack's limited propulsion, Voss navigated through the chaos. Lyra secured to him with tether cables. Each burst from the thrusters sent waves of agony through his injured ribs, but he pressed on, focused solely on reaching the fissure. With a desperate burst from his thrusters, Voss propelled them through the narrowing gap, chunks of rock scraping against their suits as they barely cleared the collapsing exit. Behind them, the cavern imploded, the pressure wave hurling them out into open space.